Yismor David, Adonai roi lo echsar, binot asher yalbitzeni al me menuchot yanachaleni, nafshi shovev, yanacheni v'magle tzedek l'ma'an shemo, gam kirelech v'gitzol mavet, lo hirarai ki ata imadi, shivtecha u'mishantecha, hema yanachamoni, ta'aroch lefanai shulchan Di shanta vashamen roshi kosiri vaya ach tov chesed yirdifuni kol yamechayai b'shaviti b'veit Adonai leorach yamin. Friends, I've chanted for you the words of our 23rd Psalm. On these most challenging days, these days when our hearts are breaking, when we are searching for answers and for some sense of comfort and solace, on days like this, these are the moments when we turn to the psalmist. And so I ask you now to join me as we recite the words of this psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we will remember him. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we will remember him. In the opening buds and in the rebirth of spring, we will remember him. In the blueness of sky and in the warmth of summer, we will remember him. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we will remember him. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we will remember him. When we are weary and in need of strength, we will remember him. When we are lost and sick at heart, we will remember him. When we have joys we yearn to share, we will remember him. So long as we live, he too will live, for he is now a part of us as we remember Arthur Gugick. To you, Arlene, his beautiful mother, to his children, Ben and Jason, to his former wife and dearest friend, to Michelle. And friends, we also take a moment today to remember those who have gone before him as we remember his brother Stephen and his father Fred. Today we also remember his girlfriend, Barbara Becker, and I know you all join me, our hearts join together as we send our love out to her family. To all the members of the family, and to so many dear and cherished friends, those who are here with us, those who are watching via live stream. We've brought ourselves together today in shock, in sadness, but here we are, gathered to remember and to find the strength to celebrate the life of your beloved Art. Not how did he die, but how did he live? Not what did he gain, but what did he give? These are the units to measure the worth of a man as a man, regardless of birth. Not what was his station, but had he a heart? And how did he play his God-given part? Was he ever ready with a good word of cheer? To bring back a smile, to banish a tear? Not what was his shrine, nor what was his creed, but had he befriended those really in need? Not what did the sketch in the newspaper say, but how many were sorry when he passed away. It is by these standards that we mourn the passing of Arthur Gugick, and at this time of grief, we find a small degree of comfort knowing that though Art did not have the length of years, he did surely touch many lives. He was born on January 7th, 1960, in New York City to Arlene and Fred Gugick. Arthur was the elder of the two Gugick sons. He and his brother Stephen grew up in Queens in a warm and loving home. They grew up in a neighborhood where they were surrounded by aunts and uncles and cousins. And Art and his brother Stephen were, in many ways, like day and night, definitely opposites, but in their hearts, they loved each other dearly. Whether it was his years attending school at PS 26 or at Jamaica High School, Arthur Gugick was always placed in the advanced classes, the sections for those students who were thirsty for additional challenges and knowledge. His teachers did not hesitate to push him ahead and advance him as he was an excellent student. And, no surprise, Art was quite competitive on his school's math team. Besides his dedication to his studies, Arthur's childhood years were filled with many activities, including his fascination and his ability to play with Legos for hours on end. We shall return to that topic in a moment. In his teen years, he developed a passion, I'm not sure if his students know this, for the Grateful Dead. He saw them perform over 100 times. Arthur's childhood and teen years were greatly influenced by his summer camp experiences. He attended Echo Lake Camp for numerous summers with his cousins Jack and Rita, and with his brother Stephen. And when he was old enough, he became a counselor at Echo Lake. Working with the younger campers seemed to spark an interest for Arthur in leading by example and sharing his knowledge, two key components in the makings of a great teacher. Upon his graduation from Jamaica High School, Art matriculated to the University of Pennsylvania, where he earned degrees in physics and astronomy. Throughout his college years, and even following those college years, Art would return to Echo Lake Camp and also to Camp Starlight in the Poconos. He would always get a phone call from the director and from the owner of the camp asking Arthur, sometimes begging Arthur, to return for one more summer. The campers and their parents requested him time and time again. While working as a counselor at Camp Starlight, Art was introduced to another counselor, a Cleveland girl named Michelle McCauley. Michelle, you and Arthur married in 1990. You lived in New York and Florida before you settled back here in your hometown. Together, you and Art welcomed Ben and Jason into the world, the two brightest lights in both of your lives. And Michelle, whether it was during the 22 years of your marriage or these past 7 years, you and Arthur have always been and have always remained the dearest of friends, and your teamwork as parents, for the rest of us to see, it's been remarkable. What a gift, what an example. Michelle, this past Saturday evening, you and John attended a showing at the Cleveland Film Festival, and as the two of you made your way through the very crowded theater, you were finally able to locate 2 seats next to one another. As you sat down, you turned for a moment and you saw sitting directly behind you were Arthur and Barbara. This serendipitous moment, an instant together, exchanging hellos and some friendly small talk. And then following the film, there were the warm goodbyes. You and John went home after the film, and Art and Barbara went to view one more movie. Michelle, while no longer married, you two were still very much connected, and you were the last of the family to be with him. I hope there is some degree of comfort knowing that you were able to see him that one last time. And your sons, Ben and Jason. Boys, I know that you know how much your father loved you, and I hope you know how especially proud of you he was. You two were his most treasured gems. In your younger years, you had fun times. You created meaningful memories. You reignited his joy and fascination with those little blocks. But in these past few years, Jason and Ben, he could not have been happier in seeing you both pursuing your dreams. This gave him great joy and great fulfillment. Arlene, there are no words. The order of nature has been reversed. We all know that we are not supposed to bury our children. And I, and no one here, we have no adequate words of comfort. Your son was quite a man, and he inspired a lot of people. And he devoted himself to helping and teaching and lifting up thousands of students. One of his current students, Joe Spiro, who's a junior at Beechwood, he shared the following words with me, and I want to read them to you. Joe wrote, "Mr. Gugick saw the potential in his students and colleagues. He was able to take his life experiences and project those throughout each and every school day, whether it was in his classroom, in meetings, or in the hallways of Beechwood High. He had an impact on his students and on people all around the world. We all saw him as a humble genius. His humor, his authenticity, and his kindness leaves a legacy that will never be forgotten." And I sense, Arlene, that Joe's words resonate with all his fellow students. And also, Arlene, I spoke with Bob Hardis, the superintendent of Beechwood City Schools, and he shared the following words with me as well. Bob wrote, "Art Gugick was one of the most intriguing colleagues I ever worked with. He was exceedingly intelligent, but unassuming. I always felt comfortable talking to him, enjoyed the new and unique things I would learn from him. Art's sense of humor was insightful and devious. He always had something up his sleeve, and it was always in good fun, never at someone else's expense. I found Art to be an incredibly meticulous leader who had a gift for making the abstract understandable and for anticipating where students would run into roadblocks. He could teach a wide range of students, from those who love math and take multivariable calculus, I could barely pronounce that, let alone do it, multivariable calculus, and also to those who struggled through algebra. Art took immeasurable pride in connecting to all the students in his classroom, no matter their mathematical talent." And Bob continues, Arlene, by saying, "He was intense about his work, but lighthearted and pragmatic about his approach with his students. What Art Gugick uniquely brought to Beechwood City Schools for almost 16 years cannot be replaced. We will miss him terribly." I know there was a service at Beechwood High School this morning, a memorial service, and I've just been informed before this service began that memorial that occurred began at 8:30 this morning. It will be online later today. Not only will the service and the speakers be online, but there's a 9-minute video of Arthur speaking about Arthur. And I've heard it's quite captivating. and charming and very, very special. If you're interested in finding this online, you'll be able to do that through the Berkowitz-Kumin-Bookatz website just a little bit later today. It's true that the students and faculty of Beechwood High will miss Arthur terribly. No one will miss him more than you, Arlene, than his sons, Ben and Jason, and your beautiful family. Arlene, you shared with me that your boy was so bright. You said from the minute he was born, you could tell he was bright. You said he enjoyed a happy childhood surrounded by love and family, and while he dedicated his life teaching his students, he was also your teacher. Arlene, you told me that whatever you needed help with, he was there for you, always making the most difficult technological challenge seem understandable. And Arlene, you moved to Beechwood just 18 months ago from Florida. You moved here, he wanted you to be closer to him. You were already close in the heart, but he didn't want the distance to be there. And so you moved here. And these past 18 months have been filled with wonderful times, with lots of fun and immeasurable laughter. Our hearts are with you today, Arlene. Everyone gathered here, I know, feels a deep sense of gratitude to you for raising such an exceptional human. The Cleveland Jewish News wrote the following about Arthur. I'm quoting the Cleveland Jewish News. They wrote, he was celebrated in the classroom and at Brickworld. Brickworld, I learned, is a Lego convention where people share their creations. Arthur was featured in the Washington Post story about the convention in 2010. They referred to him as a rock star in the Lego world. He used calculus and algebra to build some of his creations and to demonstrate math to his students. His ability to show real-world applications for the math he taught and be creative with his students made an impact. End quote. Art's Lego creations found their way around the world. His Taj Mahal was featured in a movie. Some of his creations have been exhibited at Ripley's Believe It or Not, at airports, at hospitals, and also in the homes and businesses of serious art collectors. There's a site, arthurgugick.com. If you want to see and learn more about his creations, I encourage you to visit this site. And while many of his creations were of the wonders of the world, Arthur also explored the world. A couple of years ago, Arthur was contacted by an old college buddy. His friend had decided to take himself, his wife, and his 3 children on a year-long trip around the world, and he wanted Art to go with them to tutor the children. And so Arthur took a sabbatical, and he went. He traveled throughout Asia, Europe, Australia, just about everywhere. He rode on everything from schooners to elephants. It was an amazing adventure. His life was an amazing adventure. And so I close my remarks today by sharing the words of Ralph Waldo Emerson with you. I'm 100% sure Mr. Emerson did not know Mr. Gugick, and yet he writes about Arthur in saying the following: to laugh often and much, to win the respect of intelligent people and the affection of children, to earn the appreciation of honest critics, and endure the betrayal of false friends, to appreciate beauty, to find the best in others, to leave the world a bit better, whether by a healthy child, a garden path, or a redeemed social condition, to know even one life has breathed easier because you lived. This is to have succeeded. Arthur succeeded in so many ways. And our tradition teaches us that words which come from the heart enter directly to the heart. There are 4 members of the family who have words in their heart that they want to share with us today. First, I want to call on Alan Essig. Alan is a childhood, lifelong friend of ours.
Hi, I have 5 or 7 minutes to talk about a guy I've known for 50 years. Okay, there's a lot of people here. Okay, Art and I met, we were 9 years old, he was 8. He was a year younger than me, but in the same grade because he did skip kindergarten. That whole thing about him graduating at 16, it didn't happen. That this morning was really funny to me, especially that video. There are certain things in there I know are not true. But the way Arthur talks about it and straight face, it was perfect. It was absolutely wonderful. Art was funny. I mean, he just made me laugh all the time. But his humor wasn't mean. It was witty and it was smart. And he never put, dumb humor is putting other people down. That's easy. Being witty and smart is hard, and Arthur did that really well. When we were actually graduating, I was looking the other day, going through some old stuff, and this kind of sums up some stuff for me for Arthur. In 6th grade, back in 1971, they didn't have yearbooks or anything, so they had like autograph books. And so Arthur, on mine, says to Eggy, which I didn't realize was my nickname back then. That put that out of my mind too. It goes, "A true friendship is a friend forever." 10 years old, you think, that's profound, especially how did he know we'd keep in touch? Of course he didn't. He probably wrote that on everybody's. And knowing Arthur, it was like, what is the most sarcastic, wittiest thing he can think of at the time? But the best part is he spelled friend wrong, but he corrected it. He also spelled friendship wrong, and he didn't correct it, which means he wasn't perfect because perfect's boring. But the best part, the part I liked, is he signed it Arthur Gugick, the Great. Even then, the kid had an ego. Art and I, there was growing up where we did, it was kind of like the Wonder Years, if those who've seen that show. It was about 8 or 10 boys who knew each other from the time we were 10 to graduating high school when we were 18. Most of us nerds, not great athletes, although we thought we were at the time. Wasn't until we played with other kids that we realized how bad we were. But we palled around, and Art and I weren't necessarily best friends. His best friend was actually Evan Tick, who, Evan, if you're watching, hope you're doing well. But the group of us palled around all the time. And it's kind of, I was thinking back last couple of days, how odd it is to maintain a friendship over such a long period of time when we never lived in the same city once we graduated high school. He went to Pennsylvania, I went to college up in Buffalo. He ended up in Cleveland, I ended up in Atlanta. But what tied us was, not surprising, is the Grateful Dead. We both got into it at about the same time in different places for different reasons. Both of our spouses hate it. So we couldn't find anyone to go to concerts with us. So every year for about the last 30 years, we try to find a weekend where they were playing in the same place for 2 or 3 shows, or the music festival, which would be for 2 or 3 days, or sometimes traveling around. One time we went from Cleveland to Columbus to Cincinnati to Wisconsin, of all things. And that's how we kept in touch. And in those weekends, we weren't part of each other's daily lives, which had a certain amount of freedom of being able to talk to each other about stuff. Because I didn't know his life here, so he could talk about people and things that would never come back and haunt him. And it was the same way with me. So you learn a lot about somebody in a short period of time, and especially knowing the history. So, from the time Ben and Jason were born, every year we'd get together and you catch up on, how the family's doing. And he was always so proud of him. I mean, it was annoying how he'd brag on him after a while. It's hard to get him to stop. It was really surprised me that he ended up as a high school teacher, especially if you knew him in high school. It's highly ironic. He was a class clown. He could be a total pain in the butt in a class, but he only did it to teachers he didn't respect. The teachers he respected, he knew he was going to get something out of it. Which kind of, you know, when I heard this morning of the impact he had on students and from his other colleagues, his attitude, even when he was a kid, he didn't want to be that teacher that an author student would be a pain to. He wanted to be this teacher that they wanted to be there and learn. He wanted to be entertaining because he wanted to be entertained when he was a student. He wanted to be challenging himself because he wanted to be challenged when he was a student. Arthur had a special mind. He was quirky as hell. He thought in strange ways. I once, and I know this is hard because I really promised I would not go long. Okay. My career, I involved in public policy. I worked in the legislature in Georgia, the governor's office. I ran a public policy think tank in Georgia for years. And I was really thinking about education reform, education policy, education funding formula, curriculum, how to recruit teachers, how to, for low-income, poverty areas, how to improve it. And one of our Grateful Dead weekends, we probably had imbibed some natural substances along the way. I had asked him, and Arthur, I like what Arthur said about, after 25 years, everything's okay. So this was 26 years ago. I asked him, what do you think of if you could reform education, what would you do? And to me, it was really complicated. I had read all these studies and books and talked to quote-unquote experts. And Arthur goes to me, it's simple. What you do is entry-level salaries should be $100,000, and then above that should be increases based on expertise, not experience. On the other end of it, get rid of tenure. He says there are too many teachers who don't belong in the classroom, and in our capitalist system, if you want the best and the brightest, pay the best and the brightest. Now, I'm sure any of his colleagues here, he was not talking about you. I'm absolutely positive about that. And I go, he said, because in his mind, the teachers were everything. If you want to make education better, you improve in the classroom. And a good teacher is how you get the best out of students. So, I just thought about it, said, oh, that is kind of simple. But, how are you going to get taxpayers to triple property taxes, and when the teachers' union is not to go on strike when you want to fire half the teacher staff? And he looked at me and goes, that's your problem. And, in a sense, he was right. So I'm going to miss Arthur a lot. But it's different than how you all will miss him. Normally, again, Arthur and I would see each other once every 12, 18 months. In fact, the longest stretch we've gone without has probably been the last 2 years because of his little round-the-world adventure. We actually have tickets to go see the Dead in Seattle in June, which sucks. But where was I going with this? I'm almost done, promise. You all, I wasn't supposed to see him tomorrow. I wasn't supposed to see him next week. You all will, so I have it easier. There's no, I'll go home, and it's not as if I'm going to miss Arthur at that moment. What I'm going to miss him is over a long period of time of not having that regular contact, of not having those discussions and those talks that we could have because we've known each other so long, and because we can say things to each other that we perhaps couldn't say to other people because everyone else, because we weren't in each other's lives on a daily basis. It was actually an advantage to that, and on some weird level. So I just sum it all up. Arthur was a great guy. He was fun. He was nice. He was thoughtful. He loved his profession. I know he must have frustrated his parents terribly that he didn't go on to get a PhD and become a college professor. I thought that was what he was going to do when he got out of college. But he would not have been happy doing that. he really enjoyed the classroom. He enjoyed the challenge of trying to get teenage minds, which I have 2 kids who are beyond that, thank God, and I survived the whole teenage thing, to understand a complicated subject like math. It was a challenge he really enjoyed. And he loved the students, he loved interacting with them, he loved his colleagues, he loved the profession. It wasn't a job, it was a profession. And he did it with a sense of humor and a sense of a style only Arthur could. I really, really enjoyed this morning to see the impact he had. He always talked about it. Again, those are things, again, Arthur had an ego. He knew he was good. And he let me know that he knew he was good. But to see people talk about the impact and talk about how good he was, it was really nice. So anyway, I'm going to miss him. We're all going to miss him. What happened sucks, but life goes on, and he would want it that way. And just remember to try to, with Arthur, keep a sense of humor, and lie with a straight face. He was really good at it. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. You've left us and inspired us with some really important lessons. Thank you. I want to call on his cousin now, Rita Kestenbaum.
Hello. As Cantor said, I am Rita, Arthur's first cousin. Arthur's mom and my dad were siblings. We were a close family growing up. We lived near each other in Queens and spent every Friday night at our grandparents' house having dinner, which was a ritual we enjoyed. Our grandparents' home in Hollis Hills, Queens, was where many childhood memories were made. My brother Jack, along with Arthur and Stephen, playing hide and seek, Mother May I, Giant Steps, numerous card games. And as adults, we all remembered shocking each other. And when I say that, I don't mean with words. I mean when you go along the carpet and you build up that energy and you just shock. We spent many times shocking each other. And as you have all heard about the depths of Arthur's intelligence, and this was evident in public school. Stephen, his brother, shared this gift. Unfortunately, my brother Jack and I did not. So it would be report card time, and they would bring out their report cards on Friday nights to grandma's to show their straight A's. Jack and I left our report cards home and did our best to change the subject. But Arthur was not the perfect, easygoing child as you might think he was. And this my siblings can attest to, and I have 2 other siblings, Mark and Joy. Let me set the scene. It's a bar mitzvah, or my grandparents' 50th wedding anniversary party, and the photographer is there to take the picture of the family. And he lines everybody up, and nobody wants to be there, right? But you know that this has to get done. So he lines all the families, the children, my grandparents together, smile for the camera. I'm sorry, he's not smiling. Who was it? Arthur. Arthur, could you smile for the camera? And he would deadpan straight away and not smile and stand there looking like this. And for the next 10 minutes, 15 minutes, Arthur, come on, smile. We'll bribe, we'll give you money, anything, just smile. And no, very, very, very difficult could be at times. But I knew that this was Arthur's way of being Arthur. One of the reasons that we loved him, even though it made that photography session last a lot longer than it was necessary. We spent many summers together at sleepaway camp, and Gugick was always popular, to the degree that many of our camp friends today have been posting how devastated they are at his loss. And here it is, 40 years later. His sense of humor and storytelling made him famous. Arthur could weave a story like no one, and you were never sure if it was true. And of course, as a man of many talents, He was one of the artists that was chosen to paint the color war plaques. And he could act. He was a fabulous Felix Unger in The Odd Couple play, honking and honking till the audience was crying with laughter. He had a passion for hobbies, and when he found one, he went all out, studying fractals, explaining how the small piece of broccoli was so exactly like the entire head of broccoli. What? Exactly. Welcome to my world. And the Legos. This you can only fully understand by going to his website that his son Benjamin has created and helped made amazing, authorgugick.com. But understand that he did not only create these masterpieces, but the program, the computer program that would explain how to assemble each piece, thousands of different Lego shapes and sizes, and his mind was able to come up with the program on how to create the Lego masterpiece. What? Exactly. I lost my daughter 12 years ago, and I made a memorial for her. And it was a sun clock, a human sun clock. And I found a place to do it. It had a specific longitude and latitude. And I found a man who lived in Scotland. And he was the one who wrote up the program on how to set up this sun clock so that when you stood on a month, you could raise your hand and the sun would cast a shadow and tell you the time. And he sent these instructions to me in the metric system. I can't tell you how many people I showed this to, and nobody could translate it for me. And I called up the guy in Scotland, and I said, I need this translated. We're not on the metric system. And he said, John F. Kennedy made a declaration that by 1970, the United States was going to be on that metric system. I'm like, yeah, but it didn't happen. And then, of course, I had my aha moment. Author, he will understand this. He not only understood it and translated it, he worked with the people that were building it to explain it to them. Yeah. Aunt Arlene, we are all in pain for you. And we know now we don't know how to help you. It is unfathomable that a mother should bury her sons and her husband within 5 years. And I think truthfully it doesn't matter. It's a lifetime how many years that happened. The fact that she has to wake up every day and live in this world without them, we just don't understand. We just don't understand how she can carry on. But I can tell you that you all can help. You all can call her. You all can check in with her and let her know that you are thinking about her. She's an excellent card player. Come over, play a game of cards. She loves movies. Take her to a movie. So I will bestow upon each and every one of you who keeps Arthur in their heart to remember his mother and to always reach out. Never, ever be afraid that your phone call is going to make her think about something that you're nervous about, because she will be thinking about it, and your stories will be what gets her through. This is where her comfort, as a grieving mother, I know this is where the comfort comes from when others share their love and their memories with you. There is a saying that people will not remember what you said to them, what you wore, but they will always remember how you made them feel. Attending the memorial service this morning at the high school, I know hundreds, maybe even thousands, will always remember him. My cousin Arthur was a man of love, although it was not a demonstrative love as some of us would come to think, but he loved greatly with his whole being. He loved and adored his sons Ben and Jason, always speaking of them with pride, and his mother. It impressed me so much that Arthur wanted to spend time with her, not out of obligation, but out of love. What teacher has his mother pick him up from high school every day? Arthur was a genius, and it disturbed some of us in the family that he didn't use his gifts to generate money. He could have been rich. But after listening today to his students and fellow teachers and reading on social media the tributes to him, I see now that he was wealthy beyond the boundaries of any millionaire. Before, to see Arthur, we had to open our eyes, but now to see him, we have to close them. And I will forever close my eyes and see my handsome cousin smiling, and remember that we as people can die, but the love and memories are here forever. What a long, strange trip it's been.
The last is the sweetest. Let me call on his sons, Ben and Jason.
I just want to say thank you, Alan and Rita. That was really amazing what you guys had to say, and thank you guys all for being here today. My name's Ben. Arthur was my dad, and I don't want to sound too generic with this, but this should be a happy occasion, guys. A celebration of life, not just a mourning of death. In this time, as you might be able to imagine, I don't want my own and my family's focus and thoughts to be on the sadness of my father's death, but instead on the happiness that was his life. And I'm sure that he would agree with that if he was here today. While I greatly appreciate your thoughts, prayers, and support at this time, I'd much rather you approach me with any positive memories or specific instances in which he touched your life in a meaningful way. I really had no idea how much influence he had in this community especially, so we'd really love to hear anything anyone has to say about their relationship with my father, as you've already heard. As many of you probably know, or maybe feel different about it, but as many of you might know, my dad was not the most emotionally expressive person. Although he would, of course, offer any support that we could use in hard times, such as after the death of a loved one, he was never the type of person to join everyone around him in sadness, grief, anger, hopelessness, or other such paralyzing emotions. Instead, no matter what the situation was, no matter how unsolvable any problem seemed, he would stay strong, maintain his collected composure, and search for solutions. Above all, my dad was a rock-solid lightning rod for anything you could possibly have to say to him at any time. I don't think it's possible to summarize a life, especially not in one speech, or really at all, but I'll say this, that my dad was one of the most compassionate, supportive, intelligent, strong, and honest people that I've ever had the pleasure of knowing. I understand that we all grieve in our own way, but I know that if he was here now, he would want all of you who knew him to stay strong, stay positive, and continue to live your life as you know you need to. I want to think of my father's death not just as a tragedy, but as a powerful reminder of how precious, short, and fragile life is. We're all going to die one day, so go out and live your life to the fullest extent you can. I know it's what he would want. Again, thank you all so much for being here today, and to those of you who knew him personally, thank you for being a part of his life. I hope to hear from you soon. Ladies and gentlemen, Jason Gugick.
Thank you. It's a good intro. So me and my dad have the same, and Stephen have the same sense of humor, and I felt very close connection to his peculiar thoughts and just his thought process, and I kind of think we were the same person, a mere copy, in my opinion. And for you all today, I just have a list of memories, just everything I could think of, just of him. And so Okay, here we go. So the first memory I could have thought of was he was planning out my 5th or 6th birthday party, and he wrote Jason's birthday on a whiteboard, and he had all these plans. Like one of them was running around like hooligans, or the whole, that was the most memorable one. So other ones are ripping up my English homework because he could tell I wasn't really trying with it. While me and him were playing in the Lego room, because he had a Lego room that trust me, doubled as the guest bed. We were playing in there, and I took a pillow and busted one of his Legos, and I was just like, oh God. But the very same night, he came up and fixed it. The very same night. My dad literally holding my face against the pass-through window after I said just about every cuss word there I could think of. Going on countless walks with him. I mean, I walked around everywhere with him. And one thing is that he would be like, Jason, you gotta keep up with me. I'd always be right behind him. He'd be like, Jason, can you please just walk with me? Can you please just walk next? And he visited me in Boston last week, and I was taking him on a tour around and showing him my life in Boston, and he was the one that was behind me, and I was like, Dad, can you... Oh, yeah. So it was a trip. Taking me to the local bowling team at the freeway lanes to, that bowling team was fun. Teaching me how to drive, maneuverability test, helping me puke in a bucket when I had the flu instead of going into work. Oh, going to see my first orchestra. I went to see the Cleveland Orchestra with them, and it was pouring rain, and I was miserable. I hated it. I was just like, oh God. But it was one of many concerts that he had taken me to, and it really inspired me to be an orchestral percussionist, the musician I am today, really. And the amount of concerts he took me to were endless. I really couldn't name them, but my most memorable ones were by my first drum instructor, Paul Stranahan. He by far had the best concerts with whether he was playing six-handed marimba or just simply gong music. I really think I took away the most from Paul's lessons. Going to Grindberger just down the street, yeah, it was really good. Then it closed. I don't even know why. No punchline there. He took it to Florida multiple times. Disney World. I went to the Goldsmith's wedding with him, and I have one memory of a vacation where I'm just running on a beach with him. I know that's really stock footage, but it's the only memory I have of him where he's running full speed. It's I swear, it's kind of funny. He got me into the Dead, so I love the Grateful Dead. And he took me to a couple the Dead and Company concerts and Fish concerts, or just one. But I have one memory. I was sleeping at his house in the Gates Mills Apartments, and the bed was uncomfortable. So I go in the living room, and it was like 4:30 in the morning, and I get out a sheet to go sleep on the couch, and it's like a fitted sheet, right? So I'm like trying to put it around my body, and I just remember him walking out, just being like, "What are you doing?" And that's all I remember. That's just that's all I really remember. And that's all I have written down. I'm sure there's a lot more I missed, I'm sure there's some I missed, but as you know, being a teacher, he knew that I probably got a B plus on what. I'm very glad that he got to go around the world, and he taught me a lot, and I really wish I could have been one of his students, just to see like how he is in the classroom. We didn't say "I love you" a lot because we're men and we're macho. We don't. Come on, get out of here. But everything that he did for me and everything that he said about me and said about me to all you represented I love you. And it's all the closure I need. And I'm going to close off with a line that he said at his father's funeral. I changed the year, but I'm just going to switch it back. So before I say this, just want to say thank you all for being here, and I love every one of you, honestly. So this is his last line at Grandpa Fred's funeral. 2015 sucked. I got way too old, I got way too fat, and my world got way too lonely. Thank you.
Following our service today, the family will receive visitors at the Hamptons, the apartments on Cedar Road. There are 4 apartment buildings, but in the center is this building which contains a community room. That's where the family will be greeting visitors until 7 p.m. this evening. Later this week, on Friday afternoon, the internment, the burial, will occur in Elmont, New York at the Beth David Cemetery, and this is for immediate family members. Anyone here who is wishing to make a contribution in memory of Arthur, the family has suggested that you might consider the Carol Kestenbaum Foundation. This is a foundation that was very dear to Arthur. That can be found online at carolkestenbaumfoundation.org. And if you need more information on that, please contact any one of the immediate family members. As you're able, I invite you to rise now for the El Mole, the memorial prayer, as we ask God to accept his soul. El Mole Rachamim שוכן במרומים, עמסי מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה, במלאות קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים. את נשמת אברהם שלמה בן חנה ואפרים, שהלך לעולמו בגן עדן טרם מנוחתו. אנא ברחמים אסתירהו, בסתר כנפיך לעולמים, ותצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתו, אדוני הוא נחלתו, וינוח בשלום על משכבו, ונאמר Amen. O merciful God, who dwells on high, who is full of compassion, grant perfect rest beneath the shelter of your divine presence among the holy and pure, who shine as the brightness of the firmament. To our dear departed Arthur Gugick, who is known in the household of Israel by the Hebrew name Avraham Shlomo ben Chana ve'Ephraim. To Arthur, who has gone now to his eternal home. May his soul be bound up in the bonds of eternal life, and grant that his memory inspire all of us to noble and consecrated living. And to this we say, Amen. On behalf of the entire family, we thank you for your love and support on this very important day. I ask that all of you, except for the immediate family, please be seated so that the family can first exit. Thank you.